yeah. And I promise I am not going to spend all night dissing Uncle Roger. Hi there. Welcome, everybody, to Cast Iron Wednesday. Of course, as I say every week, this is a tradition that a lot of YouTube cooking channels, or at least the smaller ones, have been doing on Wednesdays for at least probably the past decade or so, at least. Because it's a good excuse to play with cast iron. And so we've set up something of a tradition of doing a cast iron video on Wednesdays. And I've been doing this myself now for about 4.5 years. And some of the other folks here who visit this channel regularly have been doing their own Cast Iron Wednesday videos. And I certainly encourage you to check them out. So thank you to everybody who's been kind enough to visit here to this channel tonight and who might be interested enough in cooking or wok stir frying to check tonight's video out and see what happens. And I'm as curious as anybody because, well, this is Wok Wednesday, namely that we recently started another tradition here on these Cast Iron Wednesday videos, and that I try to do the last Wednesday of each month. I do specifically wok cooking because, wok cooking is so popular. I mean, I'd say it's probably among the most popular cooking utensils in the world. Even here in the United States, most kitchens probably have a wok. Or at least I would hope so. Although I know a lot of them have an air fryer these days too. But here we are, and we are getting ready to do some cooking once again. So thank you once again to everybody, and hello to everybody. Hello to Flash1499, and hello to Mike Jones and Ben Johnson and Fuzzfork8 and Val's Black Cats Rules, and a lot of people seem to be commenting right now, which is very nice. Thank you to everybody for being here. Jim Glathar, good evening, everyone from Northwest Connecticut, home of rapidly melting snow. Yeah, it's like that here in central New York, too. Well, I'd say at this time last week, we were, if not in single digits, we were not too far above single digits. And boy, the temperature has changed in only the last week. The snow has been melting, and from what I understand, we are going to get a little bit colder sometime over the next few days, but maybe, kind of like crossing our fingers here, it might very well be the frigid temperature may be over. At which point, and don't forget too, in just a little more than a week, not this weekend, but the weekend after that, daylight savings time is coming. Spring forward, fall back. So yes, there are signs that the winter is ending. Oh, and yes, and we have 4 woks, all carbon steel. Yes, and I don't blame you, Rocket Caver. That's the thing about wok cooking, and we'll be getting to that in a minute or so as to why I like using a thick cast iron wok rather than a more traditional thin wok. And hello to Peter McDonald. Just bought my first piece of vintage cast iron today. A large single notch arc logo, number 8. Nice. I hope you got a good deal on it. In that, I mean, granted, I realize the antique malls do sell that vintage cast iron for a lot more today than they used to, but there are still deals that can be found out there. So yeah, Jamie Ledgewood, 12 below last Wednesday, 70 today. Holy cow. Well, that is an extreme difference. All right. I hope you're not catching a cold from it, in fact. But yeah, exactly. Not a good thing. Yeah, tell me about it. Clico. It was 90 here yesterday. Yep, I'd say the winter is definitely passing, at least. I've been on the wok hunt, no luck yet. Well, you never know, Honey Badger. One thing actually I'm considering as well, and I should probably get started here while I'm talking rather than just waiting around. So let's get down here, because the first thing I'm doing, in fact, is drying out some shrimp. I had some frozen shrimp here that I have been thawing out for about the last 20 minutes or so here in some lukewarm water, so that it is definitely not frozen. On the other hand, now I've got to dry this shrimp off. Yeah, the shrimp is largely because, well, I think I've hinted a couple of times, I have been getting close to a Jamaican family. So, and they have kind of like introduced me to some foods that I really haven't been doing much with. And so I'm more than happy to try new things here. Trying to dry off the shrimp a little bit. And that's why once this fried rice is done, yeah, it's definitely going to be a gift to a certain lovely lady who I've been seeing lately. And that's about all I'm going to say about my love life. However, yeah, fuzz fork, that would be good fish bait. Well, I don't doubt it either. I mean, it is, as I said, it's simply thawed out shrimp. There's really nothing too fancy about that. Um, I was okay. I'm trying to think my train of thought here. Oh yeah, that's right. On the wok hunt. Yeah, honey badger. One thing is that's going on as well is that in fact the lady who I've been seeing, she, as I mentioned, has four daughters. So yeah, yeah. Suddenly I've gotten a lot of ladies involved in my life, but not that way. However, one of her daughters has just managed to get her very first apartment, and that means she is furnishing her apartment, which means I have indeed already given her a cast iron pan to go with that. But one thing I'm also considering as a gift, as a housewarming gift for her apartment, would be, in fact, a cast iron wok. And yeah, as you said, you're on the wok hunt. There's one place to consider that I'm certainly considering since April is only a couple of months away, and that would be the Lodge Factory Outlet store. I mean, if I remember right, I've been down on trips to Tennessee into the Lodge stores in South Pittsburgh and also Sevierville, and at least, if not every year, at least as often as I could. And I do believe I have seen the Lodge cast iron wok at the Lodge outlet store almost every time I've been there. So that's certainly one place to you might want to consider looking for one. David Craig, hello. Down here in Florida, they still have some in the freezer, but the season is coming soon. Killed in the line. Oh yes, that's right. The gentleman from the Binghamton Fire Department. Yes, that's been all over the news. How he unfortunately lost his life in the line of duty, and he has been laid to rest. I might end up dating a Japanese robot. Well, hopefully we don't need to get that far. Fuzz Fork 8. Anyway, maybe a little bit more pat pat pat, and then we will get down to what we came here for, and that is turning the view around and looking at the Lodge cast iron wok. And I better move my microphone over close. I was using a wireless microphone for probably maybe a year and a half at least, but since I'd say within the last month or so, since I started using this stand mic, I'm told by folks that the voice quality has been pretty good, and so I've been using the stand mic right now. Lodge walks were everywhere when I wasn't looking. I'll probably end up scoring one in the second section of the Lodge store at the Cornbread Festival. Yeah, that's my thought as well, because I've already said here, well, obviously, this particular wok has, in fact, been in quite a few of my cast iron videos because I love using this wok. This particular one is, in fact, the Lodge 14-inch wok, and this originally was made with their Pro Logic series, which I understand has been discontinued within the last few years. That was when Lodge Cast Iron designed several pieces of cast iron that had absolutely no edges or corners. Everything was curved, and there were no sharp edges to any of them, and that included this particular wok. This wok was enough of a seller that Lodge continues to produce the wok these days, although they have replaced these handles with their standard helping handles, the very same one you see on their skillets and other pieces as well. And hello to Jimmy Langford as well. What I found out, once you stop looking for something in cast iron, you'll find 3 of them. Yeah, that's about right there. That's for sure. Anyway, but yeah, and I really, really enjoy this walk. And yeah, actually, it seems like the video picks up the little star of chaos here on the bottom of this walk even better than my view here from where I'm standing. There is, in fact, a scientific reason why this 8-pointed star has shown up on the bottom of my walk. But, well, since I do have something of an affinity for the Star of Chaos, I certainly do consider that a little bit of cooking magic. However, what I've been told is the reason why is because they actually use injection molds to inject the molten iron into the mold, and this is and that's what actually creates that pattern there in the iron. And in fact, the fact that I can see this is one more sign that, as I've also mentioned over time, is that I, in fact, warped this heavy cast iron wok with all the use I've given it over the past 14 years. So that's actually a sign of warping. But nonetheless, I'm continuing to use it because I see no reason not to. And like I said, I think I've talked enough. So what I need to do, and what I also need to do, here it is get a bowl here because we're going to be doing this in stages here. So the first thing I need to do, of course, is to get out just a little bit of peanut oil. I don't even need to use very much. That's probably enough. And get this out here with my magic wand, aka my wok spatula. Yeah, that's the thing is like I have done enough of these wok videos here that I end up repeating myself with everything I've said about these, namely that I'm using this special wok spatula that's really I've taken quite an affinity to, even though I found this particular spatula for $5 at the Brimfield Antique Show several years ago. So it's not exactly something expensive. I think it might be vintage, but I really am not enough of an expert to date it in that kind of a way. All I know is that I have been using this, and it feels really great using this wok spatula here on my wok. And I think I'll say this now to get it over with because I say this every time I cook with my wok, and that is, if you have a wok, you absolutely must get a wok spatula for it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I am ordering you to go out and get yourself a wok spatula. Why? Because these things work fantastic with a wok. They've been designed especially for use. I mean, the shape of this has been designed especially to be used with a wok. It goes great here on the curved sides, and you can really feel the difference when you cook with one of these in doing any kind of stir frying or cooking in a wok. And that's the main reason why I highly, highly recommend, if you have a wok, and you probably should, then you definitely need to have a wok spatula to go with it, or chan as they call it, or wok shovel. These things here are dirt cheap too. I mentioned I found mine for $5 at the Brimfield Antique Show. But you can, of course, get these at really any Asian market. And of course, these days, even places like Walmart usually sell them. And in fact, I would probably recommend going to the Asian market for one of these rather than Walmart. Not just because it's imported from China and so it's the real thing, but you'll probably get it at a lower price at the Chinese market. Nonetheless, there we go. I think I've chattered enough. So that means let us throw in carefully because again this was wet. I really don't want to get this thing too wet. I really don't want too much water in here because I don't want this to splatter like that. Because oil and water don't mix. And cooking seafood, especially shrimp, is so easy that it really only takes like maybe a minute or two to thoroughly cook this shrimp. So let's do this quickly. And in fact, here's one thing I'm going to be doing that you usually don't use in Asian dishes. And that is, I'm actually throwing in some Cajun seasoning, some good old Zatarain's here. Because, as I said, I'm really making this for a Jamaican girl rather than someone who's eaten Chinese her whole life. She loves shrimp, she loves seafood, but of course she loves it with Caribbean spices. And I think I mentioned I use peanut oil here because peanut oil is a good high heat oil. All right, while we're doing that, yeah, FYI, Uncle Roger roasted by the legend. Martin Yan post is great. Okay. I might even want to check that out because, yeah, I have to be absolutely honest. I'm not really much of a fan of Uncle Roger. I'm not going out of my way to say, to really diss him or insult him or anything like that. He just doesn't really appeal to me for the main reason is his type of comedy is that he is mostly an insult comic. Most of his comedy comes from making fun and insulting pretty much everybody around him. And well, that's his thing. Obviously he's popular enough. He is, of course, also a genuine cook in that even though he disses so many fried rice recipes, he can indeed cook up a really good pot of fried rice. And he's done so several times. In fact, I saw the video, and I'm sure some of you folks have seen the video as well, where Uncle Roger roasts none other than Kent Rollins, in fact, because Kent Rollins did this cowboy rice video, and Uncle Roger went out of his way to really say how weird it was. Well, Kent Rollins was actually a nicer guy than I am because he replied to Uncle Roger and said, well, hey, come on down here and let's cook and let's make some rice together. And he did. And so there's an episode of Kent Rollins' YouTube channel where he, in fact, does cook fried rice with Uncle Roger. And at least on camera, they get along just fine. So kudos to Uncle Roger and kudos especially to Kent Rollins for, not making this some kind of a bitter feud or enmity or, enemyship or anything like that. Even so, I'm just really not much of a fan of insult comics. And that, again, is just me. So that's why I'm not so crazy about Uncle Roger. And I really have not seen much of his stuff. I've seen enough of it to form that kind of an opinion. And that's really about all I think I have to say about Uncle Roger. So not to worry. As I said, I'm not going to bash Uncle Roger. It's just that he doesn't appeal to me personally. Anyway, let me see. It looks like something's blocking here. All right. I think those are done for sure. Okay. Well, then let's take care of that. There we go. I'm really not much of an expert at cooking seafood anyway, so I definitely thank you very much for the advice here. So this is the first batch of shrimp. We only have a few more to go, and then we should be all set. Whoops, I think I dropped one. Well, fortunately, 5-second rule, and besides, it'll be sterilized anyway. But yeah, that's the thing about one thing I learned as well about Asian wok cooking. That a lesson that I've really taken to heart is that there are several steps and rules to doing a good stir fry. Because when I first started out learning how to cook in cast iron, this particular wok was one of the very first pieces of cast iron that I actually went out of my way to acquire myself. I used an Amazon gift card that I'd received for Christmas to get this, in fact, and I have not regretted it ever since. And because it was one of my very first pieces of cast iron, I went through the whole learning curve. That's how I ended up accidentally warping this wok, because I was regularly cooking it with blasting heat at the highest setting on an electric stove. And I did that enough that, as I said, this wok is actually a spinner. But the other thing is that you start out by doing stir fries, just by taking whatever you have and just throwing everything together in your skillet, actually, unless you do have a wok. You throw it all together at the same time and just simply stir it around until everything is done, hence the name stir fry. But Asian wok cooking actually does have some rules, not hard and fast rules. It's not like if you break the rules, these things the food will be ruined. But when you follow these kind of rules, it will actually end up producing a better stir fry. And that's one lesson that I learned, and I've done my best to take to heart. Namely, which is why right now I am pre-cooking this shrimp here before we actually get down to doing the fried rice. In that, after we do this, I've got one other thing I'm going to pre-cook before before we get down to the fried rice, and that's going to be an egg. Oh no, an egg! yeah, yeah, I know. Eggs actually. The egg jokes are going to be flying fast and furious these days because, of course, of the price of eggs. Yes, I know how egg prices have gotten absolutely ridiculous, and so, which is why I do. Well, hey, I still have some eggs, and this video, I'm sorry, these live videos, which I'm very fond of doing, I don't have any problem using you going out of my way and using expensive ingredients like eggs. All right. I remember when the PBS cooking shows were on the Saturday morning cartoons, either that or the Farm Report. I think I kind of remember that too. I mean, obviously, when I was a kid, I only watched the cartoons, but I vaguely remember flipping around the channels, probably looking for some show or another. And that's when I think I first saw things like Julia Child and the like. This was in the 70s or so. And I would suppose that this shrimp is probably just about done at this point, as you mentioned. Luckily, eggs haven't gone up where I am in Canada. Lucky you. I'll bet you could make a killing selling eggs on the black market here in the US. Joking, joking, joking. Because I realize there'd be a lot of difficulty involved with that. I had 2 woks and just got another the past week, giving it to my niece. Oh, nice. Well, congratulations, Cynthia Wesley. I when my parents passed away, I inherited the family cast iron, some of which I have since given away or otherwise gotten rid of. And their wok was one of them. Frankly, I'm the one who supplied them with just about all of their cast iron anyway. So it's like when they passed on, I ended up, just that, inheriting it back. All right, I should probably put this away with the rest of it. Whoa. But anyway, yeah, that's because among the pieces of cast iron that I got from my mom and dad as presents at one time or another included a 12-inch wok with a long handle. And it was not a Lodge wok either. It was an Asian-made Bayou Classic wok. Okay, however, let's stop yakking and start doing something else. There's still a little bit of oil there in the bottom of this pan, and that means I should be able to fry up an egg easily enough. Whoops. Holy cow, this thing just broke apart. But okay, there we go. I just barely tapped this egg and it just came apart. Oh well. Nonetheless, let's do this quickly here. Scrambling an egg in a wok is also so much fun because the whole thing is done in just a few seconds. I mean, see how fast that went? And there's really nothing to it, too. It's not like I'm using any kind of a special technique. And in fact, the YouTube comments, which are always so friendly, are probably saying I'm doing a terrible job. However, that sure didn't take long, did it? There we go. And where did I put that? Here it is. Got a little dish for this egg. So let's just be careful here. I don't want to get this all over the place. And besides, if I lose a little bit of the egg, I might have to actually claim insurance on it. All right, but there we go. That is the next ingredient pre-prepared, a fried egg. Okay, now we'll be able to get down to the rest of it. I have 2 woks. Yeah, that's right. I'll send you a wok spatula. I bought 2 of them. Yeah, exactly, Corey Clark. Feel free to share the wealth. That's for sure. Welcome, Fatty Mouse. Yes, nice to see you as well. I had mentioned that I actually inherited, well, after I had given it to them as a present, I then inherited back a 12-inch cast iron wok from my parents. And I used that wok a few times and compared it to the Lodge wok, and I'm sorry to say, it really just didn't compare. I found, maybe it's just me, but I found the simple 2-inch difference between a 12-inch wok and a 14-inch wok. Really, I could feel the difference. When using that 12-inch wok, I actually felt a little bit more confined, and there wasn't enough room to stir the food around in that 12-inch wok. And for that reason, I ended up giving that wok away as a present to a friend. So that was just me, though. That's maybe, as I said before, that this was one of my very first pieces of cast iron, and so I taught myself stir frying and a lot of things about cast iron in this 14-inch wok. But again, maybe that's just me. All right, my Lodge cast iron wok has 1 long handle and 1 helper handle. Yeah, well, Lodge puts helper handles on all of their pieces these days, which is nice. But the long-handled wok they produced first before they came out with the Pro Logic wok here. So, and then they discontinued that for several years and then reintroduced the long-handled wok. So now these days, in fact, Lodge produces several woks. They produce this 14-inch wok. I believe that long-handled wok is 12 inches. And of course, we even have the Lodge cast iron mini woks, the 9-inch wok, and I understand there's even a 6-inch wok, which I have really not gone out of my way to acquire. I've been quite happy with this 14-inch wok, but again, I live by myself, so that's just my preference, and I'm not going to judge anybody, nor am I going to diss anyone for having a different selection of cast iron than me. Okay. It looks like this is smoking again. So that means move this out of the way so it doesn't spill. Let's get out some more peanut oil. And let's get down to the main event. Boy, it's been 30 minutes already. Probably enough. I would guess if I don't think I have even a 1/4 cup of oil in this wok here. I would guess maybe about 2 to 3 tablespoons. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a 1/4 cup or so. But anyway, this should certainly be more than enough to do some stir frying here. And what I like to do is just this: spread it out so that I can get hot oil over every inch of the cooking surface. Well, not every inch, but the important parts of it. All right. And now from here, let's see where we go. A warped skillet becomes a poor man's wok. Yeah, you could definitely say that too. Well, I will disagree there, Cynthia. Thank you very much for the kind words, but I have seen cast iron collections that put mine to shame. So, okay. What else have I got to do? Oh, yeah, that's right. We are here. So, let us start doing some stir frying, and that means we actually don't even start with the rice. Although I better show you the rice before I do that, because that's the other thing I learned as well about proper fried rice, namely that you want to pre-cook the rice. I cooked this batch of rice this morning, and I've had it in the fridge since this morning. So it is now really definitely congealed together in a big lump. But that's really what you want to do because that gives the rice the right consistency. It will fry up nicely, especially since it's already cooked. And so all I'm really doing is heating up pre-cooked rice. One other thing is when you store rice in the fridge, you store it covered. You do not store it uncovered. You don't want the rice to dry out. Anyway, that's the rice. So The rest of this should go pretty quickly. Let us start with this one has some onion and celery. And you'll see how fast this is going to go. And here's the part where I mentioned how Uncle Roger will probably hate this because I'm probably putting the wrong ingredients in first. However, this is going to cook very, very quickly. Which means once we do this, yeah, I'm betting it should probably start softening any second now, in fact. More doesn't mean better. Well, okay. Well, again, thank you very much. I mean, as I said, I appreciate it. I'm not really asking for compliments, but thank you very, very much. Anyway, yeah, okay. This is and this is another thing I have mentioned every time I put a wok in one of these live videos, and for good reason. The great thing about this thick and heavy cast iron wok is the fact that it will work great on a cheap American stovetop. I mean, it's simply a fact that your typical American stovetop is not designed for wok cooking. I mean, besides the fact that you have to put a wok ring on the bottom so that a round bottom wok won't fit, more importantly, it just will not properly heat the entire wok. You might get a nice hot spot at the very bottom, but it's not likely that the sides of the wok are going to get the heat that you need, not with an American stovetop. All right, now it's time from here. We have ginger and garlic. And I've been taking the advice lately of Brian Lagerstrom, that YouTube chef, who he does not peel his ginger. As he says, there's really not much difference. I mean, he can't really tell any difference between cooked ginger, between the skin and any other part of the ginger when he cooks it. So he himself has repeatedly said he does not peel his ginger. So I'm really going by that. Oh yeah, there we go. Now we're getting a nice aroma here between the ginger and the onions and the celery. This is all smelling very nice here. Anyway, what was I saying? Lodge needs to make paddles. Oh yeah, I wouldn't. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if they did make a wok spatula. That's true. But anyway, as I was saying, an American stovetop does not work with a thin-handled wok. However, I found out, and anybody who uses this found out, that this thick and heavy cast iron wok works great on an American stovetop. All right, I think we're already ready for the rice, which, as I said, has definitely congealed into a big lump, but that's all right. It's exactly what we're supposed to do. So now, get to start stir frying some rice. Anyway, yes, this wok, as I said, it does a fantastic job absorbing and retaining heat from the stovetop, which of course is really crucial if you want to do yourself a good stir fry. Whether you're doing rice or lo mein noodles or vegetables or meat, I mean, a stir fry has to have good heat. And you simply cannot do that in a wok on an American stovetop, especially an electric stovetop. I mean, I was using an electric stovetop myself for, well, really the previous 12 years before I finally moved here into my home with a gas stove. And so I learned wok cooking on an electric stove in this wok. And it did a great job. And that's really the important thing, is that you can get the blasting heat that you need for a decent stir fry. And this is one reason why I might say, was it a week ago? Was it 2 weeks ago? Somebody asked about the essential pieces of cast iron that you want to start your collection out with. And I think I mentioned that probably number 3 would be a cast iron wok. But that, again, is just my preference. The number 1 thing, of course, you want to start out with any cast iron collection in your kitchen would be a 10-inch cast iron skillet. That is the absolute must have in every kitchen. Number two would probably be a Dutch oven. Whether it's enameled or bare, I think folks just starting out on this might prefer an enameled Dutch oven because of the advantages of an enameled Dutch oven. But I find that, again, stir frying is, so easy to do and so inexpensive that I can definitely recommend getting a wok as somewhere in your first or top 5 pieces of cast iron. And as you can see, this rice is already no longer congealed anymore, is it? In fact, I might even want to turn the heat up a little bit because that was cold rice, but that's how it's supposed to be. Nonetheless, that sure didn't take long to put all of this together, did it? I mean, I've already got the aromatics in here, and I can certainly smell them too. The ginger, the garlic, the onion, the celery. Oh, this all smells really good as it is. And it's moments like this, and I am so glad that I learned how to cook because I love fried rice from the restaurants. However, you notice how with Chinese takeout, most of the time the rice is brown and greasy. Although I am going to be adding oil to this that will turn this brown as well. However, right now it's a really lovely scent. And while it does indeed still need some seasoning, I mean, oh, this is really mouth-watering right at this moment. And so, anyway, this is, as I said, I fell in love with doing stir fries in this large cast iron wok. And again, unless you are lucky enough to have yourself one of those blasting burners, propane burners, where you can really heat up a good thin wok, you are not going to get the blasting heat that you can by using a thick and heavy cast iron wok. And that is the main reason why Uncle Roger would say, hiya, and he would not really approve of my using this cast iron wok here to do this fried rice. If Uncle Roger actually did a reaction video, I would be flattered because I would certainly like the attention. However, that's the only plug I'm going to get. I'm going to give, I promise. The point is just that this is not traditional wok cooking. I'm hoping that I'm following the traditional route by frying the aromatics in peanut oil, and now I've added the rice. And once the rice gets good and hot, then we just simply need to throw in the rest of our food, which everything else is pretty much pre-cooked already anyway. I pre-cooked the egg and I pre-cooked the shrimp. That's how easy all of this is. Okay, but yes, stir fries are fast as well. That's why. That's one other thing is, though, with a good stir fry, you do as much of your prep work in advance as you can so that it will not take forever for you to do the actual stir fry. In fact, it's taking longer for me because I'm doing this on a live video and I'm talking everybody's ears off. All right, Uncle Roger called Kent Rollins' cast iron skillet a white people wok. Shit. In apparent approval, so I'm sure he coats on your cast iron wok. Well, maybe. You never know. Maybe one day I'll find out. Who knows? All right. Uncle Roger says yeah, that's right. It says the same thing. The white man's wok. And while not necessarily a white man's wok, I have already said that I consider this kind of a cast iron wok essential for an American stovetop. Because your cheap American stovetops are simply not designed for wok cooking. And I already said why just a few minutes ago, so I won't repeat myself, I promise. However, using this pre-cooked rice certainly is giving it a good consistency too. All I really need to do is be sure everything is nice and hot. Which is why, shortly after this, this is all of my rice, unfortunately, so I won't be able to do another batch of fried rice, although now I'm kind of wishing I did, because I could also do American fried rice. I've done that a couple of times, and I'm sure you folks might remember that. That's what they also call ketchup fried rice, where you use American ingredients like ketchup and hot dogs. And that actually tastes pretty good in itself, too. But right now, we are trying to be a little bit traditional, even if the wok I'm using is not traditional. Um, so far, I hope I am still using the method for making a proper fried rice, which, as you notice, we're not getting any real big sticky clumps of rice either, which is, again, the one reason why you want to pre-cook the rice. Because having the rice sit in the fridge all day apparently brings it to the right consistency to make yourself some proper fried rice. All right. My Asian friend, Hong Kong native, used the cast iron wok for her stir fry, including you make your stir fry. Okay, now I get it. Okay. Oh, well, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm just talking and talking throughout this video, largely because it's become something of a habit when I do these videos here. I mean, I'm not deliberately trying to do a cooking show where I'll teach you how to properly do a stir fry. I mean, what I'm doing is I am trying to do a stir fry myself the way it's supposed to be done, and I guess demonstrate it for everybody else. And so far, I'd have to say it's turning out not bad at all. All right, which means, let me test a little bit of this and make sure it's gotten properly hot. Just a tiny, tiny bit is all I need. Not bad. Could probably still be hotter yet. So, that means I think I'll cover this for just a couple of minutes. Not too long. Okay. All right. Val's Black Cat's rules. I made a sauce for fried rice of Wendy's honey mustard sauce, cayenne pepper, and soy sauce. Well, that sounds good. Yeah, I am also a fan of breaking the rules, and I don't believe. Excuse me, little piece of rice in my throat. I am not a fan of saying that there are only certain ingredients you can put in your food, and you're not allowed to add certain ingredients to the food. I do not agree with that. The important point is that if it turns out tasting good, then do it. That's really the whole point. I mean, you want to eat it. I mean, unless you're in a cooking competition, which is not very likely. So otherwise, I mean, that kind of a sauce with honey and what did you say there? Honey and cayenne and all the rest of that. That all sounds very good. Lando Calrissian, I have an all-clad stainless steel wok along with a cast iron wok. Both are flat on the bottom, which is essential for cooking on a flat cooktop regardless of the material. Well, there is that. But this is yet another advantage of the Lodge cast iron wok. Boy, it almost sounds like Lodge is paying me for this. But I will say that no, Lodge is not paying me for this, and I'm being completely honest. Anyway, Lodge designed this wok especially to sit on a flat stovetop. Ooh, nice. I'm getting some browning here. So yeah, I think covering it was probably the right thing to do there. But yeah, as I said, nice thing is that with a typical round bottom wok, you do have to get yourself a wok ring so that it will be able to fit properly onto a stovetop, unless you have a flat bottom wok, as Lando Calrissian here just said. On the other hand, Lodge designed their wok with a very, very thick bottom. It has a flat bottom to sit on the stovetop, whereas the cooking surface itself is indeed rounded all the way down to the sweet spot at the bottom. So, yeah, I really like this wok. That's probably the best thing I could say there. Yeah, it does look like, well, I don't know if it's browning actually or caramelizing. I mean, I did pre-use this wok with a little bit of seasoning too, just a few minutes before. So that might also be contributing to it. However, I do think that has certainly helped because now I think it's time to start adding some stuff. That means throw in a little bit of sesame oil. We don't need to use a lot. Sesame oil is strong stuff. There we go. Notice I pour it around the side so that it will soak down to the bottom. Yeah, that's what I mean. Even that little bit of sesame oil, I can definitely smell it. In fact, I think I need to do this. There we go. That's working better. This is the part where if I had a thin wok, I'd be able to toss the food around, but I don't. This wok, in fact, weighs something like 11 pounds. So I compensate by doing this two-handed method. Oh, yeah, and this, of course, is also a, I forget, I think they just call it a wok ladle, which is also designed especially for use with a wok. And it's really useful because, well, it's a ladle. It's also a very, very big ladle. All right. So anyway, that's the sesame oil, which means the next part would be the soy sauce. I like using this stuff here, which I'm told has a ton of salt in it, but it is definitely the real thing, imported from China. And that particular one is allegedly a mushroom soy sauce. So it's actually quite a dark sauce, as you can see. Of course, that also at least helps me to tell that I'm properly mixing it in with all of this rice. And then from here, there we go. Looks like it's mixing in nicely, which means from here we have the next thing. Here is one other thing that the internet has made famous, especially MSG. Yes, indeed. I mean, yes, there are so many cooking channels that say great things about MSG. You know, they call it the God particle. And again, good old Uncle Roger says that you've got to have MSG. And I'm only using a little bit. Whereas I remember when I was a kid how MSG was one of those evil poison foods that's going to give everybody cancer and we're all going to die from it because because the evil corporations are out to poison us, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, things really have not changed from, like, say, the 1960s and the 1970s. I mean, these days it's supposed to be GMOs and gluten and some other things that are going to give everybody cancer. 50 years ago, it was MSG and microwaves and saccharin that were going to give us cancer. However, the times seem to have changed. Largely thanks to the internet, MSG does not seem to have that stigma anymore. And I did not use a lot of MSG. MSG, while it does have something of a flavor like salt, it's not really meant to give it any kind of a flavor. MSG is more of a flavor enhancer than anything else. And that's why it's so popular with dishes, especially Asian stir fries. Oh yeah, because I could certainly smell all that now from the between the what was that? Oh yeah, the sesame oil and everything else. There's definitely an aroma coming from this. That's for sure. Yeah, I heard they're great about replacing damaged pieces. Oh yes, Lodge cast iron. Yes, Lodge cast iron has a lifetime guarantee on their cast iron, and just about anybody who has called Lodge cast iron and said that their cast iron was damaged, Lodge has sent them a free replacement. I told you that story, about that really special Christmas present I got a couple of months ago. I won't repeat it here now. Anyway, good for you for getting a wildlife series. Oh, somebody found a wildlife series pan. Nice. Congratulations for that. All right. Anyway, having done all this, it's time now to throw in a couple of things. One of which would be the egg. I was going to throw in mushrooms too because I love mushrooms, but my friend doesn't, unfortunately. So, for her sake, I'm leaving the mushrooms out. However, it's also for her sake that I'm throwing in the shrimp. All right. And because everything is pre-cooked, all I really need to do is stir it all around now until everything is nice and hot. Because I've got the onions, the celery, the ginger, the garlic, as well as the rice with the oil. And now we've got our shrimp. So we are just about ready here with a shrimp fried rice, and it's only 10 minutes of 9. That shows you how fast these stir fries can be. All right. The shrooms, do shrooms on the side. Yeah, I'm definitely going to because we have so much time left yet. So once this comes out, I will indeed fry up some shrooms because I love shrooms. However, at this point, I think I'm going to throw in a little bit of extra seasoning as well. Not too much. And that is some more of the zatarans, which again is not something that you have in traditional Chinese fried rice. However, as I said, I know my audience, or rather, the person I'm going to be cooking for. So we've got Cajun seasoning mixed in with everything else. So this is definitely not going to be a bland stir fry. Anyway, that sure didn't take long, did it? Even with all my talking here. In fact, if I was just doing this straight without talking and explaining every single step that I'm doing here, I would say this whole thing probably would have been done from start to finish in anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. So yeah, this is the type of thing you can do on a work night. And that's one reason why I intend to give a wok as a housewarming present or apartment warming present for my girlfriend's daughter. So, but there we go. Nice and simple. I can't imagine the Cajun seasoning would be bad. It is mostly just cayenne pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and salt. Well, there you go. Exactly. So I've heard of people who have removed the coating on, well, I kind of missed that part. Is soy free for anyone who has to avoid soy? Oh, yeah. Aminos is soy free. I see. Yes. And yes, it is true that there are some people who do have allergies. I do recognize that, which means, of course, when you make your stir fries, well, you have to consider your audience. And I don't mean just you people here who've been kind enough to watch this video. I mean the people who are going to be eating this. So, in fact, one of my favorite things to order from Chinese takeout is pork fried rice. Well, my girl doesn't eat pork, so so obviously, if I'm going to make fried rice for her, I can't use pork. Likewise, as you said, way back when I was married, my ex, she claimed to have a fatal allergy to how am I doing? Oh, yes. To sesame. She claimed that sesame would give her a fatal allergic reaction. I say claimed because, well, obviously she wasn't dead. So I really had no way to verify this. But it's things like that yeah, do make you consider that who are you cooking for? I mean, last summer I took my huge cauldron out to a rock festival and cooked a huge bunch of jambalaya. And I had to make sure not to use any pork in that jambalaya. And here again is where folks will say, how can you not have pork in jambalaya? Well, there were people there who did not eat pork. So I had to cater to my audience. And so we just used substitutes and it turned out just fine. All right. Speaking of turning out, I do believe we have ourselves shrimp fried rice. So give me a second, please, to take a couple of pictures. All right. Yeah, it's things like this. Even though I've got such a huge cast iron collection, I do my best to try to rotate through as many of these as possible, and I love having any excuse to make a stir fry in this large cast iron wok. Click, click, click. All right. And for those who say that if you have a Dutch oven, you can do everything that you can in a wok, I will somewhat disagree. You can indeed do stir fries in a Dutch oven. You can do them in a cast iron skillet. It's not the same. The shape of the wok just makes stir fries in this so much easier and I think so much better. So, I mean, again, you can probably go your whole life without a wok if you have yourself a cast iron skillet in a Dutch oven. But if you have the opportunity, this is again, I would mention again, I consider this one of the top 5 pieces of cast iron you might want to consider having in your kitchen. All right, let me dig out a bowl here. And it looks like it's going to be a fairly large one. Okay, here's one. Okay. Actually, I think I'd better do it this way. There we go. 2. I'm dumping this right near the microphone. You might even be able to hear the food pouring into the bowl. Anyway, these utensils here were not expensive. I did say that I found my spatula at Brimfield for $5. But again, a cast iron, not a cast iron, a wok spatula is dirt cheap and you can find them at any Asian market. Likewise, you can also find this ladle at just about any Asian market. And once again, I would recommend you get these from an Asian market rather than someplace like Walmart. Not just because, again, it's the genuine item, you will probably get it cheaper at the Asian market than you will at Walmart. But there we are with a nice big bowl of shrimp fried rice. This would probably easily be enough for my girl and her daughter. So I think they will enjoy that. All right. Let's see if I've missed any comments here. And then, yes, I know. Then after that, we've got shrooms too. Oops, let me push this to the side so I don't spill it. Put this bowl from the rice in the sink. Okay. All right. Well, okay. The only thing I'm allergic to is liver. Well, not really, but makes me want to cough up my toenails. Yeah, hog wild. I have eaten liver a few times, and I have to say I'm not exactly crazy about it. I will not go out of my way to have liver. I'm sorry to say, but again, that's just a taste for me. Everybody has their own personal taste, of course. Lando Calrissian, severe peanut and tree nut allergy checking in. I carry an EpiPen. I consider it my fault, not the cook's. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, that's the thing too. I did use peanut oil in my case tonight, but of course you can use whatever oil is good for you, like maybe corn oil, for instance, or even canola oil. It's obviously you have to cater to your own taste and the taste of the people you're cooking for. And I certainly don't have any problem with that. I'll have to let my friend who had legume allergies know this. Robbing one of cast iron has been known to cause the second language to pop out. Yeah, that's one way to put it. MSG is bad, but only because it is added to so much highly processed foods, which makes I want to eat them too much and too often. Well, there is that. As I said, MSG is a flavor enhancer. It makes the food taste better, or at least it makes the flavor more intense. But I did not use a lot of MSG in there precisely for that reason. I don't think I even used a teaspoon. Maybe I used maybe half a teaspoon of MSG in that nice big stir fry there. So remove majority of it with small wire brush underneath running water. Oh, you're talking about buildup on the pan, I guess. I like shrimp cocktail, but I'm not particularly a fan of cooked shrimp in pasta or rice. Oh, well, thank you very much, Kevin Brown. I can only say I hope you like it. Because again, you I mean, so obviously cater this to your taste. I mean, usually I make chicken stir fries, for instance. I've made quite a few chicken stir fries here on YouTube. Sometimes a beef stir fry. This might be my first shrimp stir fry, so I am indeed very glad to be able to try something a little different. However, I can see this wok is definitely smoking again, and we're getting past 9 o'clock already. Boy, this time is flying. Let me throw a little bit more of this allergenic peanut oil into the pan. Only a little bit. Probably more than enough, in fact. And especially because this is cast iron. Whoops, let me move this back to the stove, in fact. Especially because this is cast iron, it's only going to take really a few seconds or less than a minute for this oil here to get nice and hot. And then once we do that, as you said, let's have some shrooms. I would not be surprised if these shrooms are done even as fast as that egg. Well, maybe not quite that fast. I love mushrooms. Oh, do I love mushrooms. Yeah, so even though we're having them on the side, I'm probably going to be the one who has the mushrooms. And I certainly don't have any problem with that. I grew up eating mushrooms. That's why I love mushrooms so much. All right. The only oil I buy is Evu and sesame oil. I render my own lard, tallow, and smokes. And of course, homemade ghee is a must. All of which sounds good. Yes, actually, ghee is also good. And you know what else? While some people don't recommend it, I have used margarine with cooking in cast iron. Because you consider this, margarine is mostly vegetable oil. So it does not burn the way butter burns. As such, I, for one, don't have any problem with cooking with margarine. I don't do it very often here on YouTube, largely because there are folks in the audience, not here. You folks are all very nice, and thank you for that. But I have gotten comments about, well, you know what, when I talk about things like margarine. You know, kind of similarly like the comments I get when I cook in aluminum, for instance. You know, margarine is one molecule removed from rocket fuel or whatever, which is actually not true. Nonetheless, these shrooms sure are shrinking fast, aren't they? I had better throw in just a little bit of seasoning on this. And what do I have here? Here's some good old pepper. And I happen to have a little bit of white pepper too. But that sure didn't take long, did it? I think it took like maybe about 2 to 3 minutes. You could top a pizza with this. All right, let me turn off the heat because I think we're all done there. And now, oh yeah, here it is. Let's get these mushrooms out. All right, there we are. Yeah, I have little doubt that I'm going to be the one eating these mushrooms, and I'm not going to have any problem with that. That's for sure. All right, there we are again. A Lodge cast iron wok with a not made by Lodge wok spatula. I should probably check and see, or somebody else might want to check and see if Lodge does make these kind of wok spatulas because it would seem kind of natural. Lodge does supply a fair number of kitchen items. I don't think they have that many kitchen utensils, though, now that I think of it. So who knows? They may or they may not. But I've already said my piece about how it would be best anyway to buy your wok spatula at a Chinese or Asian market. All right. What else do we have for comments here? Sadly, found out my cholesterol is a bit high, so I have to back up on the saturated fats. Well, yeah, there is that, unfortunately. That's what happens when we get to this age. I certainly don't deny that. Margarine has trans fats, which is never good. Well, they have actually taken the bad fats out of margarine. They did that about a decade or so ago. So margarine is still fat. There's no denying that, but it is not as bad as it used to be. And besides, you can say the same thing about lard too. Plenty of videos on YouTube for it. Most don't use a crock pot, but I do. I think a crock pot will work great too. Seems lard rendered the same way. I still don't have a crock pot because I have cast iron Dutch ovens. You can do anything in a cast iron Dutch oven that you can do in a crock pot, and a whole lot more too. Probably the disadvantage is that you have to use an external heat source on your Dutch oven. And whether that means just simply cooking it on the stove top or in the oven, or maybe you have a hot plate. Either way, I love using my Dutch ovens for slow cooking. So I personally, again, yeah, exactly. Nothing is good for you except paying your bill. Yeah, there is that. Or a fuzz fork 8. Or as the joke goes, man goes to the doctor gives him 6 months to live. The guy says, I can't pay my bill. Doctor, give him another 6 months. Hey, cooking from scratch is the bestest. Well, yeah, in most cases, yes, it is. And I do enjoy cooking from scratch. Well, as you can see, the vast majority of my videos here are cooking from scratch, although I like using shortcuts as well. And I, for one, yes, cooking from scratch will almost always produce better results. It does take more effort and arguably more cost too. These days, especially the ingredients probably cost much more than just simply buying it pre-cooked from a restaurant. On the other hand, I don't have any problem with using pre-made packages either. What was it? Only a couple of weeks ago, for instance, I simply cooked up a DiGiorno frozen pizza in my cast iron skillet, for example. I have no problems with, box cornbread mix like Jiffy Mix or Lodge's cornbread mix for that matter. Nonetheless, I do indeed enjoy making my own cornbread. Corey Clark, you can't leave a Dutch oven and leave the house like you can a crock pot. Well, there is that, and that's largely because of the heat source. I know. The crock pot is designed as much as possible anyway with safety considerations. So, like you said, you can't leave the house. And I do agree there. So you do have a point there. Crock pots are not worthless. In my case, I usually do my slow cooking overnight anyway, in that I put it into the oven and then I go to bed. And then I turn it off in the morning when I get up, which is why they're sometimes needed. Yeah. I wonder how hard it is to get get one of those ridiculous rocket burners that some folks use with woks. I'd love to put some cast iron on that and getting it to glow. You know, hey, it's we've got the internet. I would say it's not hard at all. You could probably get one of those rocket burners off of Amazon with very little difficulty. I have seen even a couple of those kind of burners designed especially for use on a gas stove. And that just occurred to me. Maybe I should actually look into that. But even so, likewise, though, if you have yourself a propane burner, You can get yourself a rocket burner or a wok burner for that, and then there you go. You've got yourself a wok stir fry that will probably equal your local Chinese takeout. Although Chinese takeout in general is pretty darn good. I mean, I can't deny that. I mean, I have sometimes if it was too greasy, but I have only rarely had a really bad Chinese takeout. But then again, that's because I always get the usual stuff like the pork fried rice and the chicken fingers. Getting the iron too hot will prevent the pan from taking seasoning. There is that, yes. That's the other thing. In one size or another all the time, even when caring for pregnant. Yeah, because you know how I mentioned at the beginning of this video, you could see the eight-pointed star design at the bottom of this. That's because I did indeed heat this cast iron wok too high, and I warped this wok. Yeah, because I was doing it again and again and again. So as a result, I did actually damage this wok. I warped it. As you can see, it still works fine. I think partly out of luck more than anything else. But also, I guess you can consider when you warp a cast iron skillet, what happens? You get a center spot that actually has a hot spot there. And somebody said at the beginning of this video, when you warp a cast iron skillet, you've got yourself a poor man's wok. Because, yeah, that's kind of the whole point. When you warp it, you actually produce a hot spot at the center. And you know, that's exactly what a wok is designed for, a sweet spot, they call it. So in my case, even though this wok is a spinner and it wobbles when I put it on a flat surface, I did not actually ruin it by warping it. But that was not intentional. And of course, I do not recommend warping cast iron for any reason. If I were to do it again, I would do it differently. Nonetheless, I'm still glad to have this wok, which, as I mentioned, was one of my very first pieces of cast iron, and it's one that I'm probably going to be using for the rest of my life. And I'm quite happy to have it. Crock pots are great for chili. Yeah, as I said, even though I did say something bad about crock pots a little earlier, I am not denying that for many people they are extremely useful. I don't eat because the Chinese people working there don't eat it. Oh, you must be talking about Chinese takeout. Well, that's debatable too. That's like as well. People who work at McDonald's generally don't eat much McDonald's, partly because they're sick of it. Brody, before I got into sous vide, I would always use my crock pot to take cheaper cuts of meat and turn them into shredded meat. Yeah, that's one of the nice things about a crock pot or a Dutch oven, for instance. You can easily make yourself some shredded meat and with no difficulty at all. You just simply throw it into the pot, put in a few spices, maybe a tiny bit of liquid. You don't even need a lot, and there you go. You've got it. Oh, that's a good point. Okay, thank you for mentioning crock pots and slow cooking because you know what? What time of year is it, folks? It is the end of February. And what is coming up in just about 3 weeks? St. Patrick's Day. Yes, indeed. Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, I had already thought of it, but I was just reminded right now because what are we doing on St. Patrick's Day for most of us? Corned beef and cabbage. And let me tell you, I have been saying this now for the past several years. And those of you who have seen me on St. Patrick's Day, you're probably saying to yourself, oh no, not again. Yep, I am. In fact, let's pull this over here now. Kind of like, yes, indeed. St. Patrick's Day is getting close to us once again, folks, and that means it's time for the good old corned beef and cabbage. I love corned beef, and I especially love cooking corned beef in cast iron. For the simple reason is that if you slow cook your corned beef, it is so much better than just simply boiling it like most people do at this time of year. Really, that's one thing I would really recommend giving it a try. Whether you use a crock pot or a cast iron Dutch oven, try something different with your corned beef. because in 2 weeks, in fact, it's time for me to prepare my corned beef for St. Patrick's Day. That's something of an annual tradition as well. You see, this is Wok Wednesday. This is the last Wednesday of the month, and I've been trying to make a tradition of doing, just that, a tradition of doing a wok cooking video on the last Wednesday of every month. I've also been trying to make a tradition on the first Wednesday of every month of doing a cast iron Q&A, and that's what we're going to be seeing next week. We are going to be once again having like a cast iron discussion where I get to stand in front of my collection and you folks throw questions at me, and I will do my best to make a conversation out of it. But 2 weeks from now, it's going to be time to start preparing the corned beef. And yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that again because that's the other thing I really want to recommend to folks. And now's a good time to say this. Do something different with your corned beef. Don't just take your corned beef and from a package and just throw it into a pot and boil it for 2 hours. It produces an okay corned beef, but add your own spices to the corned beef. Spice it up, and slow cook it, and you will have your corned beef will go from good to outstanding, and your family will love you for it. Or you could even do what I do every year and make your own homemade corned beef. Yes, indeed. That's what I'm going to be doing in 2 weeks. Once again, we're going to be making the brine to make our own homemade corned beef because it is so easy to do and it's a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward once again to having some homemade corned beef and cabbage on St. Patrick's Day. Okay. All right. It goes fast. So watch it. Yeah, exactly. Jamaican corned beef, that's certainly a possibility. I mean, that's the other thing about making your own homemade corned beef. You can use any spices you want to make it. You don't just have to use what they give you at the store. I mean, if you have your own secret recipe, for instance, use it on corned beef and see how it turns out. All right. That's what I did in a bucket before bottling. Oh, that's something else. Mark Sieber. Okay. The bars put a dye in it. Oh, I see. You're talking about things like that. Free courses. Oh, yeah. Okay. Anyway, do you cook corned beef in the oven? In my case, Sam Ostroff, I do actually. I slow cook it. I put everything together in a cast iron Dutch oven and throw in a bottle of beer and just let it slow cook for like about 5 or 6 hours. Then I throw in the cabbage and let it slow cook for about another hour and a half or so. And we've got slow cooked corned beef and cabbage. So I myself do cook corned beef in the oven. Fuzzfolk, I plan to offer a course on dumpster diving if inflation rises. Yeah, that could very well happen. So you might want to prepare for it. Okay, yeah, I'll probably be doing Irish dishes all March. And of course, yeah, corned beef and cabbage is not the only thing. I mean, there's no law that says you have to make corned beef and cabbage. There are so many other dishes you could make, like a good old Irish cuddle and bambrack and colcannon and other fun, strange sounding Irish dishes. So, yeah, I mean, it's an excuse, really, because you can make these dishes at any time of the year. But hey, why not? Any excuse is a good excuse to make something like corned beef and cabbage. All right, Dutch oven or large bean pot, azalea. Meat is easily tenderized in crock pot, Dutch oven, or large bean pot. I use all three depending on what I am making and if I want to leave the house. Yes. I can't. Let me see. Before I got into sous vide. Okay. When making Asian food, I tend to make it too salty, probably too much soy. Haven't gotten that down yet. Well, Lando Calrissian, the best I could say is keep practicing. That's what I've been doing. And at least with a few dishes, it's actually given some good results. Okay. And guess what? We are really getting close to that time, too. Wow. Okay. Thank goodness haggis is Scottish, not Irish. I've had actual haggis. I didn't mind it. I thought it was okay. It was too dry when I had it, if I remember right. and I have made an American version of haggis. Look on my YouTube channel, and you will see my version of American haggis and see what you think. All right. Okay. Thank goodness haggis is Scottish. Yeah, exactly. Prepped everything to stir fry with shrimp tomorrow. Well, thank you very much, Clico. That's about the best compliment I think I have received from the folks on this channel here. In that I have said before, I don't ask for gifts. I don't ask for donations. YouTube does pay me for these videos, but I'm not trying to make a living on it. And really, I think the best compliment I have received from anybody is when they have actually tried one of my recipes and they've actually liked it. And that has actually happened in some instances. And I consider that a really good compliment. So I can thank everybody who's been kind enough to try these because yeah, I have a lot of fun cooking these. And if someone like me has a lot of fun cooking it, then I would think that you would have a lot of fun cooking it too. So, all right. I may knock on your door tomorrow. Enjoy a bowl for me. Oh yeah, Scottish food was mostly created on a dare. Yes, indeed. Yeah, we can get into all kinds of jokes about how food in the British Isles pretty much consists of boiling the hell out of it. Walmart deli bread gets mold the next day after buying it. Well, there is that. So yeah. So well, use it quickly. That I guess is the best thing you can say. All right. My Irish grandmother made Irish lamb stew, which was great. Oh, that sounds terrific. I think I'm drooling just at the thought of it. That definitely sounds like something to try. Want that and so many other things when I like to say I really want to try that. So okay. Anyway, we are getting to about that time, folks. And I would have to say that we have certainly accomplished what we set out to do here. Namely, we had ourselves a nice stir fry in a large cast iron wok, and I talked on and on and on about wok cooking. If that kind of encourages someone to go out and try their own cast iron wok, good. I'm not being paid for it, but I think you will enjoy yourself. I mean, stir fries are easy and they're fun, and using a wok will make it even better. So I would definitely recommend to everybody whatever kind of kitchen you have, get yourself a wok that will work best in that kitchen. If you've got yourself a nice fancy stove, then get yourself a nice thin traditional Chinese wok. If you've got a cheaper stove, get yourself a nice, heavy, and thick cast iron wok. It can be the large cast iron wok, but there are other brands as well, even Asian makers who make it. But really think it works best on your stove top, and that's really what I'm saying more than anything else. Give it a try because it works great, and most importantly, it's fun and the food tastes great. And that's really what it all comes down to in the end. It's the cooking, namely, if it doesn't taste good and if it's not fun, why do it? All right. Okay. So yeah, they're singing right now. Felt good to restore some. Okay. And well, thank you very much to Clico as well and Granny Graham as well. Don't stop being who you are. Well, there is that. Yeah, and thank you as well to Incel Hubby, I guess. Thank you to Greg Hart and Azalea and Rocket Caver, to everybody who's been kind enough to show up tonight, where yet again I played around with the large cast iron wok. I mean, I really haven't done anything tonight that I haven't done a dozen times before, except maybe cook shrimp. As I said, this was my first time doing a shrimp stir fry, and well, I will find out tomorrow from my guest whether or not the shrimp turned out okay, and I certainly hope it has. And thank you again to Val's Black Cats Rules. Thank you for sharing a part of your evening with us, and thank you for sharing your evening with me, for coming into my kitchen. My whatever. I mean, all you can see right now is mostly the ceiling. So if I turn this down a little bit, yeah, yeah. What can I say? I mean, I'm just a guy with a hobby who doesn't have a lot of money, and I just make these YouTube videos for fun. And I can really only hope that all of you have been entertained. I mean, I guess you have been because you have been coming back week after week, and I thank you very, very much for that. But yeah, exactly. And hit the like button. And thank you again. And thank you as well to Ali Oop 1230. Well, you can certainly catch the replay. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. I just hope you enjoy it. And as well to Valley S and Fuzzfork 8 and Kathleen Tripp. And thank you for the live. And thank you very much for being here. So, as I said, it is a Wednesday evening, and we are ready to get on with the rest of our week. And then we've got a couple of fun things coming up over the next couple of weeks, including, as I mentioned, next week, once again, is the Cast Iron Q&A, or Ask Me Almost Anything. And we will see what happens then. And then after that, in 2 weeks from now, it's time again for corned beef, and for me to go crazy talking about making corned beef and actually making some corned beef. But until then, as always, everybody, have yourself a good evening. The weather is changing. We are starting to see the first signs of spring. So let's all enjoy ourselves. And especially with the way things are going these days, everybody keep safe. Help, protect your close ones and the ones around you. And let's just do what we can to survive. But until then, thank you to everybody, and thank you very much for visiting my kitchen. This has all been a lot of fun, and we're all going to get together next week and do it all over again. So, once again, I can only thank everybody and give the same greeting or goodbye to everybody this evening. See you next Wednesday.